Hello everyone, welcome to our webinar today. We'll just wait a few moments to ensure that everyone has logged in. So bear with us for a couple of minutes whilst we just let everyone find the right link and jump onto our webinar today.
How are you both doing this afternoon?
Very well, avoided most of the wind. I know that lots of people in England have been suffering from all the wind down south. But Richard, you're in Hampshire, so how's the...
Yeah, it's pretty wet.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Flooded roads and so on. So fortunately I don't have to leave the house until tomorrow morning. So
That's good.
yeah.
Hi everyone, if you're just joining, thank you so much. We'll be starting in a couple of minutes. If you'd like to say hello, you can go to the chat function and just introduce yourself. You can say your name, where you're calling in from. It'd be great to hear where you all are. But yes, a lovely hello and just an intro would be great. So just jump on. Hi Emma, I hope you're well. Hi Zara, lovely to meet you both on webinar. Welcome. We'll start soon, but yeah, it'd be great if you can just say hello, introduce yourselves, and we'll get going soon. I can see lots of people typing. Hi, Teresa. Hi, Kirsty. Hi, Hannah. People from all around. Oh, Stormy Devon. Oh, Dorset. Hi, Katie. Lovely to meet you. Thank you for joining. We really appreciate it. Right, team, should we start in 1 more minute and then we can get going? Hello again to everyone who's just joined. We'll start the webinar in about a minute's time. We really welcome you all. But yes, do introduce yourselves in the chat function and we'll get started soon. This webinar should take about half an hour and we'll leave sort of 15 minutes, 10 minutes for any questions at the end. But a big welcome and hello. Oh, hi, Holly. Wonderful. Well, I think we're going to start. So I'm just going to extend this screen. Hi, and a huge welcome back to our wonderful customers, but also a hello to those who we have yet to meet. For those of you who do not know us very well, we are Appraisd. Appraisd is a dedicated performance management platform that helps businesses execute on strategic goals and retain key talent. We are keen advocates of an employee-first approach to performance and development and see that performance management is not a once and done activity. It is a living, breathing thing that changes and grows along with an organization. My name is Emily Birks and I am a customer success manager here at Appraisd. I am joined by our customer success lead, Richard Brereton.
Hi, everyone.
And customer success manager, Rosalind Bygott.
Hello.
So yes, we are the customer success team here at Appraisd, and we work obviously with a lot of our lovely customers who have joined us today. But if there are any of you who are here who might want to decide to implement Appraisd in the future, you actually will be working with one of us. We take pleasure in getting you up and running and truly care about your performance management success. So a big hello from us. During this webinar, please feel free to ask any questions. There is an actual question function. So by the chat functionality, you can also add your questions. Please add your questions in there and myself, Ros and Richard will answer those at the end to the best of our abilities. Right, we're going to get started. So as I mentioned, this webinar should be about 30 to 35 minutes and then we're going to leave some time for those questions. But I'm now going to pass you over to Richard, who is going to tell you why we chose to focus on our topic of discussion today and what to expect during this webinar.
Thanks, Emily. As I'm sure you're all aware, the title of the webinar today is Top 10 Mistakes When Setting Up Your Performance Management Process. We're going to go through these and we've put them in a bit of an order from what we think is from number 10 up to number 1, which is the biggest mistake that you can make when setting up your performance management process. We decided on this topic because designing a good performance management process is absolutely key to ensuring high levels of engagement. You can't get meaningful results from the process unless it is designed well and adopted properly by your staff. Over the last sort of 5 to 10 years at Appraisd, we've worked with hundreds of clients, and many of those clients have evolved and changed their performance management process over time. So we've probably seen thousands of different variations of performance management processes. We've seen some things work really well, and we've seen some things work not so well. So we've taken our experience and learnings from that time and distilled those into the list that we'll go through today. So I'll now hand over to Ros, who will do number 10 on our list of mistakes.
Cool, thanks, Richard. So I'll kick us off with number 10. So this one is being scared of change. So I've worked with a lot of HR teams over the years, and it really understand that it can be scary when your employees are maybe complaining about a process and you do feel responsible. So I get that it can be easier just to keep doing the same old thing that worked in the past. However, if you are transitioning from a paper-based process to an online system, your paper process may not map across and align directly with the online system. So it does really help to be flexible. And having this flexibility will also allow you to kind of be open to changes, appreciate new formatting and functionality, and reflect on whether your current process really is fit for purpose or if it does need any changes or updates. And this is a great time to make those changes and be proactive, since it is easier to make changes now as part of implementing a new system, since it's a good fresh start for everyone. And also it is important to make when making changes to your system or process, it's great to get the SLT on side as well really early on, and we find that that really helps.
Yeah, I completely agree. You find a lot of our following mistakes can be avoided too if you do have your SLT behind you. Having their support makes it much easier for you to have to implement that change and not fear it so much when they are most definitely supporting you with it. Beautiful. So our next one, Richard, is number 9.
Thanks, Emily. So number 9 is not evolving your process. We all know that business priorities and structures do change over time, so you need to make sure that you're evolving your performance management processes so that they continue to be relevant. We've seen huge changes to working practices, particularly in the last few years, due to COVID, for example, with a shift to more employees working from home or hybrid working. This has meant the performance management process have had to in some circumstances, quite drastically changed to adapt, such as having more frequent check-ins and touch points between managers and their teams, to replace the fact that people may not be sitting next to each other in the office every single day. So you need to really ensure that you have a more sort of formalized process and more regular touch points to replace the sort of day-to-day conversation that you just have while sat in an office. It's also quite common for business priorities and objectives to change. Businesses do need to be agile and adapt to changing market conditions, new technologies coming out. We've seen AI recently and the huge noise and information that we're seeing around things like ChatGPT. And we've actually spoken to a number of businesses who've taken the business objectives that they set at the start of the year and maybe tweaked it midway through the year to really make sure that they're capitalizing on the massive AI trends. So it is important, if things and conditions do change, make sure that your process is evolving so that it continues to be relevant to those changes that you've made as a business, whether it's business structures, but also your business priorities and objectives.
Thanks, Richard. And I think kind of just adding on that last point, which is really interesting, is kind of how important it is if the business priorities do change, that this is communicated to your employees as well, so that their objectives can also change and shift in line with those overall priorities, and that getting that trickle down from the kind of business priorities down to all of the employees' individual objectives, that's really important to kind of evolving the process. So, Emily, I'll move on to you. What is our number 8?
Right, so our number 8 is not communicating effectively with staff. So this failure to communicate your new process may lead to obstacles for you, for other teams, for departments, and you might have a surge in inquiries as individuals are uncertain about what is expected of them. But by properly informing employees and managers really helps foster the clarity, but also helps them prepare for the upcoming quarter or year. So they're really aware of what's coming up. This communication will also then highlight when they can have their career conversations, their objective conversations, and performance evaluations. So yeah, they're really aware of what's coming, and when they have those opportunities to have those touch points to discuss specific things. This transparency really just enables both employees and managers to focus on meaningful dialogues and establish clear objectives, which hopefully will then reduce that confusion and frustration, and then will hopefully then free up HR time. As we know, HR, L&D, and all those, they can be extremely busy. Also, through your communications, something that we try to push and we see the benefit of is consistently highlighting the value and benefits that your process offers to employees and managers. Reiterating this emphasizes your commitment to placing them at the forefront of the performance management process, which is really key.
And we're often asked sort of when and how is the best way to communicate to your staff. So if we take the example of a change to your performance management process, we always recommend at least a month before those changes are going to go live, send a communication out from maybe a senior member of staff, chief executives, directors, somebody like that, explaining what the changes are that are happening, why you've made those changes. And it's great if you can address those changes were to, let's say, address any feedback that people have raised on the previous process. So it makes it look like, well, it reinforces that you've listened to staff and listened to their feedback. And also what's expected of people when that new process goes live. We then typically recommend reinforcing that with a couple of reminders between that initial communication and when things do actually go live. As well as those communications of sort of new changes, we also believe in having communication and guidance within, in our case, within the application or within your forms. As Emily said, reminding people and giving them tips and guidance on how they should approach career discussions, setting objectives. You might have guidance on what is a SMART objective and how to do that. So it's really reinforcing the message and supporting your staff with information around what's expected of them, but also give them a bit more guidance on how to use the process or the platform. Next, back over to you, Ros, for number 7.
Perfect, thanks, Richard. So one of my favourites is number 7, so not leading by example. Some of you might not like this one very much, but it is very common to see across, we work with a lot of companies and a lot of different appraised accounts. And it's very common for us to see that the employees who haven't completed their reviews or set their objectives are often members of the HR team or senior management. It's hard to communicate the value of performance management for your company if the HR team and the SLT aren't prioritising the very thing that they're telling employees to prioritise. And this is especially common for senior management. Of course, we know they're extremely busy and may manage a lot of people, which means performance reviews and check-ins do take longer to complete. But it is crucial to address this early on, especially if they have recently signed off on investing in an online system. They will want to see return on investment quickly, and you can use this to your advantage.
Yes, and I want to pick up on a point you just made a little bit earlier, was that employees could or may disengage from the process if they've completed their self-assessment, only to find that their manager hasn't done their part. So when their manager fails to participate, it can often lead to employees just losing interest and eventually disengaging from the entire process. So yeah, leading by example, that trickle down is really crucial to ensure that everyone is doing their part to support and develop everyone in the business. Great. So Richard, number 6.
Thanks, Emily. So number 6 is making your process too generic. So it can be tempting to make your process quite generic and simplistic, so that it looks really sort of straightforward. But sometimes by doing so, you can end up with a process that's not relevant to your employees and your business. the performance management process that you adopt for your business needs to focus on the areas of performance and development that are specific to your business and the requirements of your employees. For example, some departments may have different performance management focuses or different competencies, so you may need to have different forms for specific departments that are tailored to their requirements. You may also be tempted to take a process that's been used and used probably quite effectively in a different organization and implement it in your company. But this may end up with you having a performance management process that's not quite right for your business and your employees. So you really need to focus on what are the requirements for your business, and we'll talk a bit more about this later on, and making sure that you have a process that is suitably tailored to what you need and is directly relevant to what to the performance management process that needs to support your aims as a business and your employees' needs.
Yeah, it obviously depends on organization, but I think we've seen this before, and I had a client not too long ago who set out mid-years and annual reviews that was across the board, and every department would use that form to complete their reviews. However, they started to see that the sales department in particular, their engagement was decreasing. My client went and sort of did a little bit of research, spoke with the department, the managers there and the employees, and just asked for some feedback. And it came about that the questions, they just didn't feel like they were relevant enough. They didn't understand what was the benefit of some of the questions in there. And so from there, HR updated their review forms to ensure that actually they felt like there were valuable questions that actually were benefiting them. And from there, the engagement increased. So it's just a great example of just understanding what will work from one department and for another. And that can also just help increase engagement into performance management process. Great. Ros, number 5.
Oh, thanks, Emily. So at number 5, which is taking us to the other end of the spectrum from our last point, but also as much of a mistake, I think, as the last one. So just to be careful with the kind of two ends of the spectrum here. So this one is making the process too complicated and cumbersome. We generally advise our clients to start as simple as possible, really. Obviously not too simple as we've just discussed, but quite simple, and focus on the key elements of the process that they do need employees to complete first. Don't enable too many new features at once, for example, if employees aren't used to using them. I know it's very easy to want everything available in an online system, and you can get excited, but this can lead to employees kind of feeling overwhelmed and that they don't know what they need to focus on. Also, try not to make your review forms too long, like don't add redundant questions or repeat questions, either in one review or across multiple reviews. It's a sure way to kind of frustrate your employees and then reduce their engagement. Once staff are engaged, then you can work on kind of building on that initial process that you've set up. And that's when you can start adding like new features bit by bit, or kind of building extra parts into your process. Once the employees do have that kind of foundation and they know what to focus on, and they can then start learning the additional bits that you may want them to focus on then.
Yeah, as Ros alluded to, it's very important to find the balance between simplicity and the complexity, and understanding, as we've said before, what the requirements are for you. And again, we'll talk about that a bit later. But just thought I'd give an example on the point that Ros said about sort of starting simple and building up. Where we've seen the sort of best success for adoption, particularly amongst our new clients, is when they have a real understanding of what is important and in what order. So I'll expand on that a little bit. So for many clients, the first thing that they want staff to start doing when they launch the online system or launch a new process is make sure their objectives are set properly, because that really is the foundation for everything they're working towards and the subsequent performance management that happens beyond then. So they literally just launched with objective setting, and then once everybody's done that, got used to setting objectives, then add into that and start incorporating sort of ad hoc one-to-ones or reviews, and then focus on, right, what's the first review or first one-to-one we need people to have? Let's build that out. Let's get people used to using that. And then if they then want to give people the option to have different types of one-to-one conversation, you could maybe add a well-being type check-in, a career type conversation in there that people can start using once they've got to grips with the first bits. So we're a real believer in not chucking too much at people too soon, because people can just look at it and think, that's just too much and I'm going to disengage. So try and make that learning curve as shallow as possible. Get people really used to it. Make sure you get high adoption for the first thing that you launch, and then incorporate more from there, and then just gradually build on your process so that it looks like it's little changes coming from time to time, rather than being a really daunting set of massive process changes that staff have got to adopt. Now back over to you, Emily, for number 4.
So number 4 mistake is designing a process to suit HR rather than the business. So something important sort of is incorporating both managers and employees into the performance process is essential, as it ensures it truly benefits those most affected. Their input will encourage more engagement throughout the process. And then when they see that their perspective has been valued, they're more likely to appreciate what has been set out for them by the HR team. I don't want to highlight that we do and absolutely appreciate that some organizations have specific processes, specific questions that are necessary, that the business are required to have those processes and queries and questions, and understand it is a balancing act between meeting the needs of the business and meeting the needs of the employees. But as we always say, like after you've launched that new performance process, it's always a good idea just to seek some feedback from employees and managers, actively listen to what they like, what they dislike, what isn't working for them, what is, and then implement changes where appropriate. This really will foster like a higher engagement and a positive experience, and will just demonstrate their significance in your decision making.
Yeah, I think this is a really important point, Emily, and like some specific examples as well of what we see working really well are like doing employee surveys, company town halls, maybe putting together a steering group, and just make sure that doing any of these, you have kind of good variety of like seniority levels in terms of the people involved and attending these meetings, to really kind of maximize their input really, and discuss kind of what went well, what hadn't gone so well, and then use this to tailor your process. So yeah, we find this works really well for kind of gathering that feedback.
Before we carry on, I just wanted to jump in for another point there on the where Emily said we do appreciate there's some things you have to do. We work with a number of regulated businesses who fall under the senior manager SMCR senior manager certification regime. We understand that is always going to have to be part of a process. People, they're never going to enjoy doing the compliance things, but those sort of things you have to do. So we do appreciate there are going to be examples like that where you have to gather a bit of information, answer some questions on behalf of the business, but providing you're balancing that with the rest of the performance management process, really delivering value to your employees and your managers. But people are going to understand they have to do the boring bit, but they also get to do the bit that's useful to them as well. And now I can carry on with number 3. So we're into our top 3 now. Not too long left. Thank you for all your patience so far. So number 3 is not supporting the technology. Obviously, we are a provider of an online performance management system. So we really extol and understand the benefits of online systems. They can facilitate good conversations, allow you to track objectives, and have visibility of all of your data in one place, and great benefits on reporting as well. But we do see companies simply launch Appraisd and think that implementing an online solution will automatically increase engagement with performance management. An online system, or in fact any process, is not a silver bullet in its own respect. They can make a big difference to address your problems, but they tend to work best when done alongside other changes. First of all, employees need to understand why the changes are being made. So that goes back to our communication point earlier on. You also need to provide training and guidance. if you have people within the business, new managers, for example, who have maybe not really done very many performance management conversations before, just giving them a new form and saying go away and have a check-in with your team, they might do an okay job, but they'll be much better at it and they'll provide much more value to their direct reports if you can actually give them some training or guidance or mentorship on how actually to be an effective manager, maybe how to have difficult conversations, things like well-being. You can end up having to ask or getting some uncomfortable answers to questions, and some sensitive things can come up. So giving people support and guidance on how to address those conversations in a sort of sympathetic and constructive way. Other examples of guidance would be, and I touched on this earlier on, about how to set good objectives, how to give constructive feedback, and in fact also how to receive feedback and assume positive intent. So all of those supplementary bits of training and guidance and communication will really help maximize the effectiveness of your performance management process.
Yeah, something I want to touch on there is, one, we shouldn't assume that people know how to have got good conversations. So giving them prompts and tools to help those who lack that confidence and just provide them with structure. I actually have a client of mine, so there's a feature in Appraisd where you can have your annual reviews, your check-ins and so forth, but there are actually sections that you can actually hide from the employee, but it's only visible to the manager. And what they did is that they did a section that was just manager support, and in that section they had prompts, lists of different types of questions. So when the manager was having those touch points with their direct reports, they did have a support and had a list of different types of questions to ensure that they were asking the right things and able to ensure that checkpoint was really, really valuable to both the manager, but also to the employee. Number 2, Ros.
Thanks. So nearly there, but on our number 2, which is not following up on data. Your performance management process should hopefully be giving you a lot of data, and it is crucial to do something with it. It's not really enough to just simply gather it. So this could be things like training courses that employees request, their suggestions for improving your company, maybe concerns that they raise, any feelings around their well-being. There'll be a lot of conversations like this that are kind of happening, and you should have all this data. And there may be enthusiasm when you first launch a new process or online system. But after a few rounds of reviews where nothing employees raised is followed up on, they may start thinking that it is just a tick box exercise and put less effort in going forward. And we see that this is often a really hard thing for people to come back from. Like once employees do start thinking that nothing's coming of kind of their efforts, then it's hard to kind of convince them otherwise. So it's much easier if you do take action immediately and are kind of aware of this from the start. So make sure that you are regularly pulling those reports, but more importantly, kind of have a plan of action to follow up on that data that you are gathering.
Yeah, that's a really great point. So I seem quite echoey there. This is the one that I really like, and I actually think there's argument can be made that this is the biggest mistake, but there's not a lot between this one and the next one. We do see a lot of clients who want to implement a new process to help with retention rates or talent succession planning. And online systems are great for capturing what's been said in reviews and check-ins and allowing you to run reports to look for either interventions that you need to take to support individual employees with any concerns they raise, or their development or their career, but it also allows you to identify wider trends within the business and address them. And as Ross touched on, closing that feedback loop is really important. If you're expecting staff to be honest, candid, and engage with the process and raise any concerns that they have, or highlight their career ambitions or sort of development plans with you, if you don't do anything about it, they're not going to open up to you again. So really make sure that you're not just having conversations for the sake of having conversations. You're actually using what you learn, whether that be managers or you as HR, using what you learn in those conversations to take positive action to improve employee happiness, well-being, development, but also improve performance across the business. Because ultimately businesses succeed by A, having good strategy, but B, having the right people who are focused on the right things and are supported and engaged in delivering your business plans. Now over to you, Emily. We're on the last one now. So our number one biggest mistake that you can make when designing your performance management process.
Yes, it was tricky to choose, but this is the one that we decided upon, and that was not knowing what you want your process to achieve. So we do think it's crucial to question the purpose. So questions you can ask is, why are we doing this? What outcomes are we aiming for? What value should it deliver to both the business and employees? And how will it support our overall business goals? We also think that by clarifying the value for employees and managers and understanding their ideal process, you can design a purpose-driven system. We also do think it's always a good idea to avoid the generics of statement, it's a must, we just have to do it, and emphasize the underlying reasons for the implementation. And lastly, keep your desired outcomes concise, focusing on 3 to 5 key objectives. This simplification will be beneficial when presenting the process's value to senior leadership, employees, and management. And just ensuring that you reiterate those 3 to 5 key objectives is really, really important. And everyone is aware of what you're trying to achieve when implementing your performance process, and try not to be vague. So yeah, there's just a big awareness for the business as a whole as to why exactly you're going about implementing it and how is it benefiting the business, but also if I'm an employee, how is it benefiting me? What can I get out of this? Yeah.
And I think, this is really important, and that we often see kind of good examples of clients who start doing this approach really well, especially when we first start working with them through the kind of onboarding implementation process as they're implementing a new online system, because it does kind of force them to take that step back and really consider like what they want and what their overall goals are. But then once it becomes kind of everyday life and things start ticking over a little bit more, they kind of lose that focus that they had initially and maybe stop asking those questions and keeping them at the front of their minds. So we do advise, that really come back to these, keep going back to your initial kind of focuses, see if they need updating, kind of links back to our, I think, one of our early points, point 9, I think, about not evolving the process as things change. So it kind of comes back to this as well, is knowing what you want to achieve now as well, even if you did know last year, it might not be relevant anymore. So you kind of need to look at it again and see if it still makes sense for what you need and to keep evolving and delivering on your process.
Yeah, and for the clients we see that have the best results, they are doing this and they are continually evolving that process. And although it creates more work for us, we do enjoy helping clients evolve their process and sort of tweak it year from year. And those are the ones that they really see the benefits and really see the impact of the process within their business. So that's why we put this one at number 1. But as Ros touched on, lots of these points interact with each other and need to be done in conjunction.
Absolutely. Wonderful. That we've done our top 10 mistakes. And the next really is just a quick Q&A. So if you haven't written a question in the question section, please go about and do that now. But we actually do have a couple of questions that have been asked. So one is from Anna, and she wrote, on the subject of making the process too cumbersome, when dealing with underperformance, do you see more success with companies who use performance improvement plans or a more simplistic process?
I can touch on this one if you want. So, yes, there is value in performance improvement plans, but we do think that should kind of be a sort of last resort. That's when it's you either sort of step up to the plate or you're going to be managed out of the business due to not providing what we expect from you. Something that we really like, and I think a number of you may well be in the HR Ninjas community, where we've shared our sort of check-in templates recently. One of the ones we have in there is a realignment check-in. So we advocate having conversations like this before you get so far down the road that you need a performance improvement plan. So it's we've noticed that things are starting to go a little bit off track. Let's have a positive conversation around what is the reason for that and how can we support you sort of get back on track and boost your performance. We were speaking to another client the other day that calls this a performance enhancement plan. So it's a slightly more positive first step. So yes, whilst it is adding probably another form, I think it's good to have a sort of middle ground between sort of regular performance management and the more sort of drastic solution of putting somebody onto a performance improvement plan with the consequences that go with that. So hopefully that answers your question. We then have a question from Emma. What's your advice when moving from a paper-based performance management process to an online system? Does one of you two want to take that one?
I'm happy to. I think it's really important, as Ross had mentioned, one of our mistakes earlier on is that don't just almost, if you've got a paper-based performance process, don't almost just immediately apply it exactly on your online performance system. To try and really think about what wasn't working before, what can we change and implement in our system now, and also just strip back. So if this system is so new to the business, I think really work out what are we trying to achieve, what do we want to do here, and so just strip back on extra features and really focus on the value and benefits you want employees and managers to experience through this new performance management platform. And then from there, you can slowly build upon and add all the bells and whistles, which might get people re-engaged or more excited about other features. But yeah, I really would just say, what are you trying to achieve? What was working, what wasn't? And hopefully, if you've got a customer success manager like one of us, absolutely will just support you in and advise you and we'll have someone to collaborate ideas on and just ensure that what you're looking to achieve is achieved.
Yeah, and just to add to that, yes, whilst the focus today has been on sort of mistakes, but also how to do things that avoid those mistakes, we do see people that have very well designed processes that were offline. So it's not necessarily just the case that you're moving online to get rid of a bad process. It may well be that you just need everything in one place, need a more sort of slick interface for people to work with. So sometimes it is just simply a case of taking a process that's worked very well offline, moving it online, and then over time adding to it, adding features in online, such as public recognition, for example, that is not really possible in a paper-based process. So just to add that, we see some great offline processes. It's just how do we take those online and how do we enhance them and make them even more effective?
Absolutely. Well, if we've got no more questions, unless there are, please add. We can ask them again at the end. But Ross just has a few closing remarks before we finish our webinar.
Cool, thanks, Emily. Thank you to everyone today for attending. We hope you found it really useful. A little plug here for us as well. We're also offering an accelerator workshop at the moment, which will be run by our colleague, Director of Performance and Change, Amira Kola. She would run this workshop directly with your company to ensure, work with you and ensure that your performance management process delivers for everyone. So your senior leaders, HR, managers and employees. Details on this can be found on our website if you're interested in organising one of these. If you are a current Appraisd client, then you should know one of us already as your CSM. So please do reach out if you do want to discuss anything further. We're always happy to organise a call with you. If you are new here, then it's lovely to meet you. And if you have any questions or want to talk about anything further, you're welcome to go to our website and there's a book a call button. Well, I think it's called Let's Talk, and you can book a call on there. If you do want to discuss anything. We'll be summarising today's webinar and the recording will be sent across to you and also will be available on our website as well if you do want to catch up on anything. Just thank you very much for joining.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. I hope you found it useful and we hope to meet some of you in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.